This episode of the Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast is brought to you by Guy and Lady Barrel alcohol-infused cigars. These cigars are absolutely incredible, and they are perfect for any occasion. I particularly enjoy their newest flavor, Mojito. I'm not sure if you heard me correctly. I said Mojito-flavored cigar. I don't think it gets much better than that. Now, cigars are best enjoyed with company, so head on over to alcoholinfusedcigars.com and pick up a 5-cigar box set with any flavor of your choice. These cigars are great for birthdays, weddings. They're a great gift. You can give them for almost any occasion. I particularly love to get a cigar out, go on an evening walk, and pray. But you can use it however you want. Once again, thank you to Guy and Lady Barrel Cigars for sponsoring our show. Go to alcoholinfusedcigars.com and see all they have to offer. Please enjoy responsibly. All right, here we go.
All right, sir.
Dean Gray.
All right.
Hey, I'm Kevin Hackenberg. This is Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends. We've got fancy mugs from our new online store. What? And more fancier than the mug is my friendship with Dean Gray.
Yes.
Sitting across from me. Dean Gray, crystal clear comedy.
Yes.
When I was getting into comedy,
Yes.
or put it this way, I'm a little slow on the uptake.
Mm-hmm.
And so after 20 years of my career,
Right.
I realized I love to laugh and I should do comedy.
Mm-hmm.
And I met someone, a young lady, and she said, "Oh, you got to connect with my friend Dean Gray.
Yeah.
He's in comedy."
Yes.
And I remember sneaking in. I was doing a shoot in Orlando.
Oh, so you stalked me first.
We stalked, but then I had gone to see Black Panther.
Okay.
I was on a
Wakanda forever.
Wakanda. I'd gone to see. I remember this clearly. I had gone to see Black Panther
Right.
at a theater somewhere in Florida.
Right.
And I came out of the theater, and I didn't want to go back to my hotel yet, and I wanted to do a little movie research.
Okay.
And Pure Flix's Samson
Right.
was playing in another theater.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wandered into the other theater,
Right.
as some people might do. And I was so glad when you called me to get me out of that movie.
I called you at that very minute.
I was in there and I was just like, this movie is not going anywhere. And you called him like, good, let's talk some comedy. Because I love the guys at Pure Flix. David, Michael, thank you for making some great content.
Right.
But I love to laugh.
Yes.
And there were some things to laugh at in Samson, but I was more happy to be on the phone with you,
Wow,
laughing
it's
and
more
sharing.
dramatic there, so not too much.
Yeah.
It's hard to have a brick fall on somebody's head and think it's. Yeah.
Well, sometimes, as I made this book up, saying Christian movies are funny, but shouldn't it be on purpose? So some films, I think that a lot of movies, like the whole Mystery Science Theater
Right.
TV show is based off of movies that were funny but weren't meant to be funny.
Right. Well, some people know comedy, some people do comedy, some people eat comedy, and then some people shouldn't do comedy.
Some people are comedic and they just don't know it.
And that's true, because one thing I learned is being in comedy, it's a lot of people think it is a formula. And when you're doing stand up, I read a book and went to several comedy shows and workshops we went to up one in Rhode Island, and you find out it is punchline setup. So if you do the punchline setup properly,
I think it's actually the other order.
Set up punchline, right? So if you do it reverse,
that's what I've been doing.
It goes into work. Yeah. So if you do the setup and then you do the punchline, then you really should know and you should receive a laugh. So that's kind of a way to gauge whether you're doing it right. But then there's also pauses, and a lot of people don't know it's a pause. Sometimes it's not what you say; it's the lack of word, but it may be the expression that you make that's funny.
How did you discover that you wanted to be a comedian? So first off, introductions. I know you from comedy. You got introduced to me as a comedian. You got your company, Crystal Clear Comedy. How long have you been doing comedy?
Oh, geez, 25 plus years now. So yeah, it's been a while.
How did you start into it?
I was real thin when I started, but brother pregnant now.
When did you know you wanted to get up on a stage and make people laugh?
Church. I mean, literally, I was at church and they were like, "Dang, you're funny, get up there." I was like, "I'm going up there." They're like, "Seriously, get up there." So all right, let me try it. So I went up on stage and they laughed and I was like, "Oh, okay." And I think that's the thing. Sometimes God will show you stuff in just doing stuff. So that's like when you serve, you get to know what your gifts are. So I made people laugh, but I didn't think about it as a career or something I wanted to do. And when I started doing it, they was like, "Oh man, you're funny. Let's do it again." And then I did it again. And then somebody said, "Do you charge or do you come out?" I was like, "I could." So that's kind of started me. "Oh, well, you want to hire me?" And then they, "Well, yeah, we'd like for you to come out."
I've always said, do what you love.
Right.
And sooner or later, you'll get paid for it.
That's true, and that's really true. So it's like I started doing it, and people asked me to come out to their function, and hey, what do you charge? And I'm like, I didn't know, I don't know.
Yeah.
But then I charged a nominal fee, and and then it was, "Oh, well, can you come out to mine?" So then it's kind of snowballs. So the more you do it, and people like you, they want you to come to their event, and then you start getting into, I would say, it's not a rut, but it's that next level jump.
Yeah.
Like it's the first. It's okay. Well, let's just do it kind of novelty, and then okay. Now I'm starting to get asked to do, every time I do a gig. Now I'm asked to do another gig. So it's like, okay, well, I need to get more consistent, because what I started finding out is that different audiences are different. So even though you tried comedy here and that worked, it didn't work here. And that's like the worst feeling in the world. When they're like,
What was your first experience bombing that you remember?
I think I was at Temple's. Well, I felt like I bombed. I was at Bridge the Gap. Temple has a group called Bridge the Gap, which was Don Graves, and they were all Christians at Temple. They were serious, real serious Christian student group, and they asked me to do a show, and I did the show, and I didn't feel like it was the greatest show, but I did the show. So that was like the first time I started feeling like, a little pushback, and it was good because it drove me to start. Okay, start figuring it out. It's like filmmaking. Like everybody has a camera, but everybody has to film it. It's the difference between filmmaking and just having a camera.
It's interesting. Someone sent me a video today.
Right.
A filmmaker sent me a video, and I watched it. I try to, when people personally address something to me, I try to give it some time and watch something. But this film was, it felt like there were some moments that were subpar.
Right. Gotcha. I
think what's interesting about comedy, though, you could feel that subpar. You could see a comedian by yourself and be like, "That's not funny," but someone sitting next to you could just
love it.
Die laughing.
Absolutely.
And I think with comedy, you have this moment to see, did the audience laugh? Did some of the audience laugh? Did all of the audience laugh? Did none of them laugh? And I think that with film, with filmmaking, sometimes you don't get that unless it's comedy.
Well, I read a book on filmmaking that said in the first couple lines of the script, you should get something.
And something.
Something. I mean, you may not get what everybody gets, but something should grab you or say something to you.
If it's a comedy, it should get a laugh. You
should get something. So I think in comedy, I took a course where the guy said that in the first 10 seconds, you need to. Well, I did two things. One, I went out to the Rockies. I went to the GMA gospel music in the Rockies. It wasn't gospel music, it was Dove Awards then. And learned from a guy named Michael Jackson. Is it Jackson? And he said that you got to marry yourself to the audience. And that's really the thing. A lot of people don't want to take the time to bond with the audience. The audience doesn't know you from can of paint. And they're like, okay, make me laugh. And the comic, out of all genres of entertainment, that's the hardest thing to do. And a lot of people don't realize that. It's the hardest thing to do because I don't know you. I don't know what makes you laugh. See, I can sing. And you might not necessarily like the music I'm singing, but if I got a nice voice, he has a nice voice.
You'll tend to be like, good job.
Yeah, right.
Golf clap, right. Like, yeah.
So, comedy is one of those things that, and my allergy is going crazy, so if you're wondering about this is my little commercial. If you're wondering about the white paper towel, it's to clear the eyes from the water that is coming out. Okay, thank you. So anyway, with comedy, you have to really... One, you have to bond with the audience. Yeah. And one of the things I'll say about comedy that people don't realize is that comedy cannot be done with distraction. See, a lot of people think you can do comedy and have a banquet, and you can't. As long as you do the comedy and the banquet in the right order. You can't do comedy and a variety show. And I've done it, and I bombed. And the reason why I bombed because I didn't realize the variety show was 2 hours long.
The audience has to be ready for comedy.
And then after 2 hours, they're like, "Dude, we want to go home. Shut up."
So there's a lot of factors that can go in. There's a lot of factors that can go into ruining an audience for comedy.
For sure. And now in my contract, if I'll look at it, I won't do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'll tell them, listen, if you're gonna do comedy, you can't do it this way.
Yeah.
You have to change the order around. This has to be gone. This has to happen. This has to happen, or I won't do a show.
One of the first, so as a filmmaker, as a comedy filmmaker,
right.
Prepping the audience, knowing the audience. So I was so happy. A big supporter of mine, my church, City Light Philly, they had a sermon series coming out called Selfie.
Right.
And I think it's to this day I think it's one of the best videos we did. It's one of Funny&Amen's first videos. Right. And our church has 2 services. I went to the first one. I had to work in the afternoon, so I went to the first one, and the pastor gets up and says, "And here's a video." And this video plays, and it wasn't the selfie video, it was another video. It didn't get the reaction. It was just like audience, just like dead, not hearing it. And I was like, "Wow, I failed as a comedy filmmaker. Totally failed. No audience reaction." Right. I talked to my wife. I said goodbye to my wife. She was working in the nursery. I was like, bomb. That video bombed.
Right.
I left. I drove away, and she texted me. She went to the second service where the video played again. She texted me saying, "Hey, second service, they loved it." I'm like, "What happened? Why was that audience different?" And she said this. She said the guy that introduced the video said, "Hey, here's a funny video." Right. Just that word. Here's a funny video.
Just that word.
Just turn the audience that they're like, "What is that? Oh, I'm supposed to laugh."
Yep.
And what I noticed, I'm sorry, that wasn't the selfie video. That was a different video.
Right.
The next video I did was selfie, and I said to myself, in case I get a bad introduction, I have to build into the video a comedy introduction. Right. I gotta cue in some comedy music, some lighthearted music, something that's going to allow the audience to know what to expect over the next 60 seconds, 2 minutes.
Right. So. Comedy's like that. I gotta grab you, and that's it. I have to grab you, and you're like, "Okay, dude, what you doing?" But that's it. I gotta grab you. If I don't grab you in the first couple minutes, then because the audience is determining whether do I really like you or don't I like you. Yeah, that's really what I'm. Now they're doing it with all music and all entertainment. Yeah. Whether they like the film but comedy, unlike any other genre. That happens so fast.
Comedy is pass fail.
It happens fast. It's not like you have a whole lot of time Now, I find that church folks are a little bit more forgiving, somewhat.
Is this the black community you're talking about, or the white community?
No, both of them.
Yeah,
so
they're more forgiving.
Oh yeah,
bless your heart.
Well,
Thank you
you gotta figure out, you do secular comedy in your club. You gotta compete with alcohol too.
Yeah. There's distractions.
Right. So you got to deal with the distraction of alcohol, who can also be a problem.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that my experience just trying to be funny around church folk is there's a distraction of piety.
It can be.
It can be. Not always. Sure. Not always. The people that are looking for a good time are looking for a good time.
Yeah, for sure.
But you're right. In the club, you might have a distraction of alcohol or noise or other thing, other drama.
Right.
In the church, there's drama.
Yeah.
And there's other people looking for drama.
And I find sometimes in the church, the other side is, should we be laughing at this? It's like, what do you mean? Should we be laughing? If it's funny, it's funny. I know, but I don't know if that. It's almost like this.
Am I allowed
to laugh? Yeah.
Okay. What's the pastor doing? Is he? Oh, he's laughing. Okay, I can laugh.
The Bible talks about laughter. It's a good medicine.
Yeah.
But,
There's also some other verses that no coarse joking and that kind of stuff,
right.
And it's I have been accused on this show of using some other language that was appropriate to my guest. I thought, and. So we're still figuring it out.
It's not, and the thing is, that's the thing. It's like we think that it's all said, and especially for a Christian comic. I don't curse. I don't believe you should curse, and I don't condone cursing. But some comics do curse. I don't say they curse all the time.
Yeah.
But they'll throw which I don't like, but on the same token, I'm not. It is what they do.
I'm gonna get a hammer. You never cursed.
Never.
I'm gonna get a hammer.
Not on stage.
I'm gonna get a hammer and just hit your hand and see what happens.
So I mean,
see what comes out. Oh golly.
Yeah, So I'm just saying, in terms of that's not my style.
Yeah.
But then I talk about stuff that other people say, oh my gosh, like. I'll talk about relations. I'll talk about sex. I'll talk about But I think I do it in a way that still honors the Lord.
You gotta figure out who your audience is, what their language is, what their comfort level is, and you're right. There's that idea, if you can get hey man, I'm in a marriage relationship. If there were things I couldn't do outside of marriage that I can do now, there's full disclosure.
Let me say the case of one. I talk about, when you're single, the devil's like, oh yeah, oh she's looking good. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And the devil's always trying to push you towards her, and her towards you.
Yeah.
And the heat is on. And then when you get married, it's like, where's the heat? There's no more. I'm cold. I'm really cold.
What I was trying to say is that you mentioned marrying the audience.
Right.
I think that once you have got that intimacy with the audience from the first laugh, the first 10 seconds, from knowing that, making a joke about them, or not about them particularly, but about the surrounding environment. Like making a joke about if there's something that's just jumping off the walls at the church you're in or the venue you're in.
Absolutely.
Make a joke about it, or something about you physically. If you can quickly build that bond, then you get away with breaking.
You do, and you do, and that's part of what I've had to do is in taking courses about comedy, that you learn that those are the things that you have to do at first. Matter of fact, and I did. One of the cardinal sins I did is that I didn't do that when I went to a show, and it bombed again. Yeah. Because I was trying to relate to them because I knew them, but I didn't do the essential comedy thing, which is bond to the audience first.
Yeah.
And it wasn't an ideal situation because they didn't have first of all, they asked me to do comedy and didn't even have a mic.
What?
In a banquet hall. Like
big space.
Yeah, like you want me to go up there and use a PA system? I can't use that. So they came up with this mic, and the cord was short, and the mic was bad. Oh, it was bad.
Distraction. So, you gotta get rid of all the distraction.
And then what happens? That gets in your head.
Yeah.
So I I didn't do well because it got in my head. All those distraction was coming on, and there's some other things going on, and I tried to fight through it because every comedy night's gonna be a great night.
No.
Yeah. So
Are you when you have those distractions?
Right.
Are you pretty good at flowing through things? Like, so a lot of people might not know this, but a lot of comedians have sets.
Yes.
And you get up there and you just do your set.
Yes.
Are you good at ad-libbing and make...
Oh, that's my specialty. That's my specialty. Yeah. I am good at ad-libbing. Like, if I get a heckler, I don't really have a problem with a heckler.
Yeah.
The problem I have that where I get struck is if things aren't going right. The mic cuts out, or if I got to work with something that's not that's unusual. That can throw me a little bit.
Yeah.
But if you heckle me, I don't really have too much problem with that.
Yeah. Because
I'm pretty quick, so you come at me if you want to.
It's an invitation.
And the other thing is, I was a teacher.
Oh yeah.
So I taught for 20 years. So I taught for 10 years. So. And I taught high school kids, so no one heckles you more than high school kids. So it's like you can't. There's not much that I can't deal with.
Yeah.
Because Mr. Gray, why's your nose so big, Mr. Gray? What? Like so they I'm Mr. Gray. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
And now that kind of stuff I don't have a problem, but something happens on the stage, something happens with the mic, something happens that has a tendency to throw me a little bit, and I have to work through it. So you have to find out that's the other thing that's good you said that, because some of the things you have to find out where is your weakness. Like what don't you do well?
Yeah. Like
some people are great stand up, but they're not great situational comics.
Yeah.
Some people are great situational comics, but not good sketch comics. Like I feel like I shine better in sketch comedy than I do necessarily in stand up.
Yeah.
Even though stand up is good for me. Now that case in point, like this right here, that little guy with the some people don't like when you do caricature.
Yeah.
So when I have like that suit on like there, or I do this guy here, some people don't like that kind of comedy.
If you listen to the podcast, Dean, go to crystalclearcomedy.com. You'll see a bunch of different characters and photos from Dean's comedy past.
Yeah.
Comedy present.
So I do different things.
Yeah.
So some people like the characters and some people don't like characters.
Yeah.
So some people like just straight stand up.
Comedy is very
diversified.
Very diverse, and people, and even in a household, you go into any audience, and one guy's looking for like that comedy that bends the rules of the establishment.
Yeah, right.
Someone else is looking for like something just clean dad jokes.
Right. I think you can get any audience to laugh at anything. It really just depends on the show,
the presentation.
So if you're in a show, like you're in like I've done a couple nightclubs.
Yeah.
So when I did the joke for the nightclub, I tempered it towards them.
Yeah.
I took maybe some of my scriptures out and just talked about. So you gotta look at it. Okay, how can I relate? When I start out, how can I relate to them?
Yeah.
So a lot of times when I have a show, I'll send out a survey.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well, what are you doing? Who's the main person? These are some questions I want you to answer. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm trying to find a relation point.
Yeah.
If I have their name or I know who they are, what the event's about, then it gives me a better.
You can do some research.
Yeah.
Are you the headliner or are you the supporting act? And
either way, though.
And if there's a support, either way, you research it, and because comedy is so fluid, you want to kind of pick. You want to get a minute from talking about the other speaker or the event, what you're there for.
And I've had the same situation you just had with the church thing.
Yeah. I
had 2 shows in the same day.
Yeah.
This first show started. Well, we deal with black people, so it started late. I was there on time, but it started late. So, but the thing was, killed it the first show.
Yeah.
Jokes, laughs all over. Second show was later, and it was work.
Past their bedtime or something, or.
Each crowd had a different energy. The energy of the first crowd was I think it was 2 things that happened. One, It was my second show, so your energy is not as because I'm expending a lot of energy.
Yeah.
2, the audience was not. It was half full, and they were all spread out, and you wouldn't think that would make a difference, but it actually does. So in the second show, I had to work, and I changed the routine up because I had to start messing with the audience.
Yeah. To
engage them more.
Yeah.
They weren't
You got to go long distance because they're not packed. So I want. There's a great. I learned something very valuable.
Right.
A gentleman I got introduced to, who runs a comedy show at the Hostel, New York. It's up by in Harlem.
Right.
And in the basement every Tuesday night, at least before COVID, there was a little comedy show.
Right.
And I went and showed up, and there's in this basement lounge where they run this comedy show. There's 2 couches, and then they bring in all these like chairs from the venue. And I showed up early, and I was like, "Hey, let me help you out. Let me put up some chairs." He's like, "No, don't put up chairs." And I'm like, "He's like, I'll show you why." And the first 2 people came in, we escorted them to the front row couch, and 3 more people came in, escorted them, and he didn't put up a chair until the front row was full.
That's it, really.
And then put in chairs only enough for the people that were there, so that he built in a packed house from the front row back to if there were 6 people that came, it was a packed house.
Right.
3 on a couch.
Right.
If there were 12 people that came, it was a packed row. So it was very that connection shoulder to shoulder with somebody else who's laughing.
Right. It's infectious.
Yeah.
And you really have to kind of go and do. That's what you learn as a comic in stages is the next stage is understanding how to craft your show. It's not just always about telling the joke. How do you craft your show? So sometimes you have to tell people, hey, this seating is not going to work. I did a comedy show where the audience is on this side and that side. No one's in front of me. No one's in, like, how in the world? Like, what are you doing? And I didn't know that was going to affect the show. But I'm doing a comedy on this side. Then I got to come over here and do the same joke. So it's like I was defeating myself.
Yeah.
Because the way the room was structured, it wasn't conducive for comedy.
And so many times, some rooms are like that, but some rooms are not. And you can just do... whatever.
But some rooms, see, with comedy, unlike any other genre, like I said, you have to pay attention. So if you're not paying attention, then how can you hear the joke and how can you get the punchline?
Yeah.
So you don't get the punchline, you don't laugh.
Or if you don't get the setup, the punchline doesn't work.
Right. So the case is some of the punchline is me in how I'm expressing something.
Yeah.
How I'm talking.
Facial reactions.
So if you're not picking it up. Then what happens is if you don't pick it up, like this audience here, if you don't pick it up, you turn it off. You just turn it off.
Yeah.
And that's what they do in the audience. They just turn off.
Yeah.
So that's why you really have to understand what you're doing. When you take gigs for venues, you have to understand the venue. How is the venue set up? Can you send me pictures of the venue?
Yeah.
So that I can really do a good job because a lot of people think, well, I just want a comic. Yeah. I know what you want.
You want laughter.
You want laughter.
You want laughter.
And I have to make sure that everything that I do will be the best venue for that laughter.
Yeah, and we got to work together because
for sure.
If you want music, I can bring a guitar and I can play in the corner, and the music will have different quality levels. Exactly. But if you want laughter, you got to align the stars, align all the elements to kind of get the laughter.
And you can't take that for granted. I've learned as a comic that I will turn a gig down if the setup is wrong. Yeah,
because it's your reputation.
Exactly.
Did Dean Gray make him laugh?
Right.
Well, he tried, but the audience.
I know the venues that I tried, and they're like, okay, I don't know what that is. I mean, it is what it is. But that the goal is to make it as. And that venue that I did do that, I compromised. They said they had it, they didn't have it. I come there, oh my gosh, where's the mic?
Yeah.
Oh, we can't you just use the podium? No, I can't use the podium. This is not kind of speaking.
You could pick up the podium and carry it around with you.
Kidding me? Like, are you serious? I said
they asked me to use the podium. You get the podium under your arm, like.
So, and that's part of comedy too. Is the orchestration of the audience.
Yeah.
Because if you can't, if you're having a problem, they can't hear you. How can they bond? How can you bond with them?
Yeah.
If you got bad sound system.
Can you imagine a comedian standing behind a podium just delivering?
Now
it happens.
Now
it happens.
There are some comics who could do that and would kill.
I was thinking of the correspondence dinner.
Right.
There's always a comedian standing up there behind the podium,
right,
delivering it. But it's a lot of inside jokes and
you got to learn that style.
Yeah.
Which can be good,
It's what kind of venue.
And I said every comic has its strength.
Yeah.
That's not my strength.
Yeah.
I'm a very animated kind of guy.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me to be animated behind a podium.
One thing you taught me, we did a show together.
Right.
I brought you to this little youth group comedy night, and you were like, "Oh no!" You actually. There were other comedians that turned down the gig because they were like, "It's youth people. I can't make them. They don't have enough life experiences to have tragedy to laugh at their own tragedy."
Right.
But you came out and did it and did an amazing job.
Right.
And it was because you said you had the high school background, but you also had a background doing like events.
Vacation Bible School.
Vacation Bible School.
Yeah. So I literally took the Vacation Bible School songs and brought them out there.
Yeah.
And some of the skits that I used to do and brought them out there.
Yeah.
Because comedy is relational, and 15-year-olds don't relate to me.
Yeah.
I mean that not in a way that they can understand if I'm bringing a joke. I'm bringing jokes about marriage. They're not married.
Yeah.
I'm bringing the jokes about dating. They're dating, but not like I'm dating.
Yeah.
So that's like, okay, well, these jokes that I'm doing right here aren't going to work for them because they're like, I don't know. And that's the other thing. If the audience can't relate to what you're saying, then how do you ever think they're going to laugh?
Yeah.
Because they just don't know what you're talking about. So in that case, it was like, okay, I'm going to do a couple jokes, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch up and went into I did VBS Cheers. I did, because it was like they can relate to that.
They can relate to that, and you're getting them. You're marrying yourself to them to where they're at and their energy.
Right, and then okay, this I can kind of this guy is not and I didn't have I could have did some cell phone stuff because I got a classroom. I had a girl who every came to come in. She's like, hey, I'm like, okay, we gotta do the lesson. She's like, oh, hold on, Mr. Gray. I'm like, excuse me. We gotta do the lesson. Mr. Gray, hold on. So I got in the selfie. Went, okay, hey girl, how you doing? She's like, Mr. Gray, get out my selfie. I said, well, you gonna get in, I'm gonna get in. So just because I'm gonna relate to her, and she finally, okay, all right, Mr. Gray, all right. So this is just that's part of the experiences. It's all about life experiences. So when I deal with youth, I can relate to them because of what I've been as a teacher, being a vacation Bible school director. And just, having comfortability. That's the other thing. You got to be comfortable around teenagers. Yeah. Who don't laugh at the stuff that we laugh at. Yeah. So, if you can't... That's why I knew when I came there, I said, oh, yeah, this ain't... I don't know. I'm going to do a couple jokes. Then I'm going to switch it up. Because it was
You're like, thanks for the money, Kevin. Yeah. I'm not bringing my usual game.
Well, hey... We came through with something that they laughed at. So...
Yeah, we did good.
And that's what it's all about. Sometimes you got to just... throw out the jokes don't work. Yeah. Sometimes people don't realize with comedy, sometimes you have to scrap all your jokes and just be spontaneous. Yeah. Now there's a guy that I met, the guy we met in Rhode Island, who does nothing but spontaneous. Yeah. Now to me, I'm not that bold. Yeah. Because I feel like if I go that route, it's a little dangerous.
Very dangerous.
Because you don't know what you're going to say.
Yeah, yeah.
Craft,
a little less, it's going to be crafted.
And you got to, it's almost like, you really have to be skilled. And I think, like I said, teaching has done a great job for me in terms of getting me to the point where I'm spontaneous enough with even the hecklers, they don't bother me. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I had one guy heckling me at one show. And I said, oh, it's a special ed section. He just I said, we got special ed back there. Okay. Did you graduate, buddy? So you got to do something to throw that back at them and kind of like shut them up.
Yeah.
Because like you mess up my show. Like if you want to get paid, come up here and do it yourself, but leave my show alone. So you got to kind of deal with the heckler so you can stop heckling you.
Yeah.
And usually it's using the embarrassing. And I had that situation in class. One girl she was going at me. Mr. Gray, and she was pretty much cursing. I'll just use the word F. She's F you and your class, F your work. So I just said, well, I guess that's what your grade gonna be. That's what your grade gonna be. I can arrange it for you. Because it's like you're already trying to someone's throw it back on you.
Yeah.
And that's just some other stuff I won't say her. I ain't gonna lie. But it's just okay. Now you're trying to embarrass me for no reason, but to get attention.
Yeah.
So I have to now flip it on you.
Yeah.
And take that attention of that power back from you. So when the class started busting out laughing, now you're embarrassed. So now she never did that to me again. And that's the same thing with comedy. You get people that try to come at you. Like, what do you? First of all, you supposed to be sitting here enjoying the joke, but you want to be the behind the scene comedian.
Yeah.
And I've had a pastor not really be like ignorant, but he was. Hey, Pastor, come on up here then. Come on up here with me, Pastor. He's like, oh, no, you the comic. I said, no, you the comic. So, get him to calm down so I can do my show. And then he did. So that's all that. You gotta do the dynamics of the room. Who's the hot person that you gotta deal with? Yeah. Calm them down so they can listen to the. So because if they take over your show, you. It's like I don't know if you saw that movie. What was that movie that Eddie Murphy did? What was that movie? Oh, The Clumps.
Oh, yeah.
Where he was in there with the guy, David Chappelle was playing that guy, and he took over his show. People will do that.
Yes.
Take over your show. Try to take it over because I'm going to get it. No. You can come at me if you want. That's your choice. And that's what you got to do as a comic. That's the professional part of being comedy. That's the difference between church stuff and really professional stuff.
Yeah.
That you got to deal with.
You're ready for.
You have to be. You have to change up in a moment's notice. You can't let it frazzle you. You can't sing. Even you might be frazzled. You can't let it appear that you're frazzled. Because if you lose control of the show, that is the worst.
Yeah.
I mean, you might bomb, which is different than losing control of the show.
Yeah.
Bombing is, okay, they just didn't get your jokes.
Yeah.
They might just didn't like you.
Yeah.
The venue just wasn't working for you. Okay, it was a bad night. But when somebody tries to take over your show, that...
Podcast no.
This is a commercial for the Christians drinking whiskey. All right, I'm drinking water there because I don't like whiskey.
This is a good time. We're going to take a little break here. I want to talk to my wife, and we come back some more.
He got to talk to his wife because he ain't going to have no show.
This episode of the Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends podcast is brought to you by Dad's Hat Pennsylvania Rye Whiskey. Dad's Hat is real rye whiskey made the right way. This month's featured bottle is Classic Rye. Barrel aged for at least 6 months in charred new oak quarter cask allows the genuine rye flavor to evolve quickly. As a result, this small batch whiskey is ensured of reaching the right balance of complexity and smoothness. The final product is a very smooth spirit that delivers upfront spice that rye is known for while finishing with a full, round mouthfeel. To find a distributor of this award-winning whiskey, head on over to dadshatrye.com. Or if you're a Pennsylvania resident, you can have any of their delicious rye whiskeys delivered right to your door. Trust the distillery with over 200 years of American distilling tradition, Dad's Hat Rye. Please enjoy responsibly. Dean Gray, here we are, talking about comedy. Dean Gray, comedian.
Yes.
Entrepreneur.
Yes.
I stepped in manure.
I designed my t-shirt, see?
Designed the Vaughn family.
Yeah, so a family reunion t-shirt.
Nice, awesome.
Yeah, it's nice.
Reservoir Park, Lancaster, 2019.
Yep. Yep, designed it my daggone self.
So, we have had some fun. There's if you guys want to check out Funny&Amen's YouTube channel, you can see a little comedy short with Dean Gray on there. You also had a good role in our comedy film You Came, our
You
comedy
Came.
musical. We knew that you
we
would
knew
come.
that you would come. Yes, I even did
And
some
you-
voiceover for you, but never used it though. That's all.
Oh no! And that's only our 2 collaborations so far, right? We've also done some other.
Well, we did the church show together.
We did 2 videos that are on Funny&Amen's YouTube. More
Right.
church shows and more to come. We're developing some things together.
Yeah, for sure.
What? Let's go. Let's turn the corner
Right.
in our conversation
Okay.
toward the spiritual. So the question I ask everybody on the podcast is, what do you think of Jesus? What do you think of Jesus?
What do I think of Jesus? What do you think, Jesus? Huh?
The action figure. Everybody responds to the action figure when I ask this question.
I think that Jesus is the greatest influencer of man that there ever was, or ever is. That is, was, and will be.
The greatest influencer of man.
Yes.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yes.
What? Elaborate on that description.
Well, I mean, the figure of Jesus is to save man, demonstrate to man how they ought to live as men, and then bring men to a relationship to God that will not only last throughout this world, but through all eternity. So, I'm influenced by what he did, because one of my mottos is, the fun doesn't stop when you meet Christ. Like, we think that because we're Christians we can't laugh or have fun, or I have a ball. And I don't ever think that my life is boring or dull, even though others may, and I don't have to do it without alcohol or drugs or all the other things. But my thing is, the Lord gives you the ability to be all that you can be. I came that you might have life and might have it more abundantly. It's not that I came that you might have life and you sit in the closet and just like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to read the Bible and then go to bed. It's more than that. It's about getting out. It's about sharing. It's about using your gifts and using your gifts to the glory of God. Greatest influence of man that ever was, will be, and shall be. So I love the fact that I'm a Christian.
How do you...
I do. I really love it. I can't. I'm serious.
When you think about yourself as a comedian, you think about Jesus, is there any kind of like... Is there any... When you look at the Bible, for instance, like, is there any comedy that you see, like, like in that tradition?
I think that God laughs at us constantly. In different kinds of ways. That, sometimes, like, you laugh at your kids. Like, what are you doing? and sometimes your kids do funny things. And I think God relates to us the same way. I mean, I think it's funny because we think about God as the creator, but we don't realize that if he created laughter in us, then it's in him too. We are in his image. So, I mean, some of the stuff that I know, even when God talks to me, sometimes he, because one thing, the definition of comedy is tragedy removed. So when you remove the tragedy, you can look back at the comedy of it. You can't do it while you're in the tragedy, because the tragedy is the emotion of sorrow and all that is too real. But when you go back and look at it, you can say, oh, like I'll never forget this time. One of my children did something, and I was gonna tear him. I was gonna lay into him, and I said, Lord, you know I'm right. And I walked out the door, and I ran past this cop who did a beeline to turn his car around and follow me, and caught up to me and stopped me. And he came to the door. Can I get your license and registration? I said, yes, sir. And he said, your sticker's expired. I was like, oh no. He said, you know what, I'm gonna give you some grace. I'm gonna have some mercy on you, and you go get that fixed. And immediately the Holy Spirit said, what should you do?
Well, do you remember what you were going to your kid about?
Something they did, and I was like, should I have mercy or should I just like tear him up? And that was God saying to you, I'm going to teach you that object lesson. And I think that's where the comedy comes in. It's object lessons that God teaches us. He used that cop to teach me the object lesson. And I said, I know what to do now, Lord, thank you. So, I think that's part of what God is, because things that are humorous come out of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes arguing with your wife. I had a situation with my wife in terms of we were dating, and I talk about the women in the church. You women, you form a union. You might not even know a woman, but you form a union, and you join hands. And men don't do that, but women, you broke up with my sister. Oh, you broke up with my sister. Like how's that your business? But it is my business. That's my sister. That's the kind of stuff.
They're like thugs, aren't they?
Yeah, like hello, and I was blackballed in my church. You know what I mean? So it is what it is. So, but I think those are the situations that God laughs at us too about. He's not. I guess we think because he's God and he's omniscient and he's holy and he's all, but he's also got humor too. Because it's like, okay, when I don't even know when God talks to you sometimes. Like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah.
He's like, I know what I'm doing. Like, well, how come you ain't telling me? Because I'm God. Chill out. So God knows when to bring levity, I think, in our lives. Because you need it.
Well, let's take a little right turn and we'll come back to more spiritual questions. But you mentioned getting pulled over by a cop.
Yes, a couple times.
What, as a black man, what do you think about what's happening right now with?
I'm black.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, maybe you're just out in the sun.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just out in the sun a little
No,
longer.
I'm 100%. No additives, or artificial colors here. All right.
No Jefferson?
No, not that.
That you know of?
Not that, no.
What do you think about what's all the Black Lives Matter stuff that's happening right now? What's your opinion about the things in the world? I'll preface by saying, there's no preface needed, but I get in a lot of discussions every day with my brother or somebody sending me hey, here's like a conservative black person, or here's I don't know, I'm curious about Dean Gray.
Well, I mean, I'm black, and I'm gonna be black until the day I go home, be with heaven, be with the Lord in heaven. But I'm also a Christian, so I look at things from a Christian perspective. And I was reading in Jeremiah where God says he dealt with Israel because of the injustices that they were perpetrating against the people, their own people. And I think part of what we're going through is God dealing with the injustice that happens to African Americans as well as to Caucasians. And a lot of it's perpetrated by we need to reform the police department because, in my opinion, they're running. They're not. Their goal is they say to serve, but a lot of them. And let's be honest, it's like anything. Minority affects the majority, and I think there's a minority of police officers that are really corrupt. The majority are very good, but where the minority is kind of running amok, and it needs to be corrected so that the majority doesn't look so bad. And that's the problem. In every society, that's usually the case. Majority of the people are good, but the minority is a minority that's bad, and they make it bad for everybody. So my concern is that we don't allow situations to get out of hand by the minority, so that I got like this whole defunding the police department. That's ridiculous. Because I'm not coming to your house. No, you call my house like I'm asleep. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow. If not, then see you in heaven. So you know what I mean? That's not my job.
You're not gonna. If we defund the Philadelphia Police Department, I can't call you to be like,
absolutely not.
Come across town, Dean.
Right, because when I call you, I'm like, I'm in Jersey.
Oh, you're saying I won't reciprocate?
I mean,
probably not.
It's just like that is just you just don't go to the extreme.
Yeah.
You just make the reform.
Throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do that.
Why not just clean the baby?
So it's a matter of we need to be able to have dialogue, which I think is happening with this. But I really believe God brings these kinds of things into play. If you read your Bible, you'll see it happening all over again. All the time, God uses the people sometimes and judges the people. And then we have to correct ourselves. So it's more than Black Lives Matter to me. It's like sin matters. Sin is the problem in all our hearts. And that's where we got to, unfortunately, sometimes manifest it black-white. But if you go to another country, it's manifested Protestant, Catholic. If you go to another country, it's represented tribal. So it's in all men. It's not just here. It's just here it's white, black. But if you go to Africa, it's tribal. I'm a Tutsi and a Butu, whatever. Yeah. It's all over the place. Yeah. If you go to Aborigine versus Australian.
Did you make that up?
No, I forgot their name. I know they're a tribe.
I don't know. I could be.
No,
I was like one of us. Do I say it? Does he actually know?
Does he make it up? I didn't know the actual. Sorry, people. Yeah. But it's man. It's not just.
I think it's interesting. Yeah. There's so many. We're about to come up on an election year,
right?
And there's going to be so many, it's the most expensive Band-Aid advertisements,
right.
Because you're right. There's these, and there are Band-Aids that we're trying to put on sin.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to put the Black Lives Matter Band-Aid on sin, and the Black Lives do matter. Black lives should be considered,
and.
But at the same time, if we just focus on police brutality, that's a Band-Aid that we can and should reform.
Right.
But there's more to discuss there.
It's a lot more to discuss. I mean, I think, and again, we come back to, this is why I bring everybody back to the biblical narrative. God says that all have sinned and fall short of the glory of God. So as a result of sin, division has come. Bigotry has come. Prejudice have come, and the only remedy for sin is Jesus. The only remedy. Now, do we have problems in the church? Absolutely, because we still have the sin nature. But I come back to what does the Bible say? Because if God is the judge, then you have the right answer. That's why God said to David, you want to have kings? This is what's going to happen. God, see, a lot of people think, it's funny to me because a lot of people think that God hasn't given us the answers even to today, and they're right there. The Bible says when you put men on top of men and you make them kings, this is what your sons and daughters are going to have to face. So God doesn't fool us in telling us what sin does. What we do, though, is we don't want to necessarily submit to what God wants and do it our own way. And then God says, there's a consequence for that too. So I don't look at anything that happened today and say, oh, it's outside of what the Bible scope for the world is. Because if you're looking at the Word will teach you what you need to know about the nature of man and how man can be remedied from his own nature. So
that's awesome. I'm going to move on to some other questions.
No problem. That was just so touching, people. That was touching. I know.
So, another question happens to be this. And you kind of mentioned it. What's something about Christianity, religion, or something else in the world? What's something that we don't talk about enough? This show is made to kind of have deep conversations with people. What's something that we don't talk about enough in society or have open dialogue about?
I mean, I really think the Black Lives Matter dialogue is necessary in America because we don't like talking about it. It has been a taboo thing in America to talk about the division between African Americans and Caucasians. Caucasians, Indians. I mean, it's just always been that way. So to have these discussions is a good thing. I think the problem is that there's deep division. And what we need to do is not go on the, like if I'm divided with you, I don't always have to attack you because of the division. See, but because there's so much brutality and people are dying, there's very deep sentiment, and it should be, because no one should be dying needlessly. But this whole thing where we're just trying to rip each other's head off. Sorry, Christopher, but his head's gone. So I mean, but that's part of. We need to take the step forward to make dialogue better, and then understand that everyone's not going to agree. I may not feel like you do, but I should respect what you do.
Yeah.
And I think that's the problem. We're getting away from just respecting others to have differences. Now, I am not advocating at all that that someone should be murdered or resisted upon in a way that causes them physical harm. Now, whether they commit a crime or not, I mean, you should, the goal is to subdue them and make them accountable, not subdue them and then take their life. That's not going to work for anybody.
Yeah. And
it's not that hasn't happened to Caucasians as well. We think it happens disproportionately to African Americans, but it's happened to every group. And that's why we need to reform. It's not just about that. It's about being respectful. And I think that because you're an officer and you have power, see, that's the other thing I love about what Jesus said. We come back to Jesus. Jesus said to Pontius Pilate, you don't have the power, and you wouldn't have the power if it wasn't given to you from above. So even in the crucifixion, God was acknowledging to Pontius Pilate that I gave you the power to do what I am allowing you to do. So sometimes God allows those. See, we look at God as, God is love. But yes, God is love. But God allows some things to happen to bring about change. And sometimes change doesn't happen until you struggle. And America is definitely in a struggle right now. It's in a deep struggle.
The world's in a little struggle.
The world's in a struggle too, but
what's happening?
Yeah, it is. The world's in a struggle, and I think God sometimes brings those. We're so used to just let's have it nice. No, not everything's gonna be nice all the time.
Yeah. I had a question for you.
Yeah. A couple of them, man. Matter of fact.
A couple. This is a good one. This is one of my favorite questions in the podcast. Have you ever had any paranormal, spiritual, or supernatural experiences, personal experiences?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, tell me about them. One.
Well, I had someone actually try to assault my family, and came to my door and told me they were going to do some things and asked me for some money, and I was like, no, I'm not giving you any. Well, I said, let me pray about it and see what the Lord said. And I prayed about it, and the Lord said no. So they came back to my door. I said, well, you going to give me my money? And I was like, well, no, God told me to tell you no. Oh, okay. So one day I was coming down the street, and someone charged at the house and really got into a physical fight. So I called on the name of the Lord before the fight happened, and literally God took over. It's almost like when you look back with Gideon and the Midianites came in and God touched the Midianites and threw them into confusion. That's what kind of happened. And I came out victorious. I had a busted lip, and I asked God about the busted lip. He said, well, you in a battle, brother. I mean, how you think you wasn't going to get... He said, that's all you complaining about is a lip? Come on. I was like, well, dang, I thought you said you fine. So, yeah. But it was supernatural how God did it. And it was done by him. And never had a problem with that family ever again. So I know that when he says don't touch God's anointed, you better be careful if you have that kind of relationship with God and somebody comes at you in the name of the Lord, you claim one for the Lord and one for my family, and you go do what you have to do. All right, and I did, and that family has never messed with me again. And matter of fact, I actually believe God touched the person who promulgated their mind. See, that's one thing people don't understand. God created everybody, so if He wants to touch you in the mind, how you gonna fight? You can have all the skills in the world. You can be jiu-jitsu, karate, aikido, taekwondo. When God touch your mind, you be dumado. So I mean,
very much like Nebuchadnezzar.
Yes,
The story of Nebuchadnezzar.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so if you don't know, there's an amazing story in the book of Daniel, I believe, where Nebuchadnezzar, who's mostly known for, throwing Daniel,
greatest king of Babylon. Yeah,
he's known as the greatest king of Babylon. He's known in the Bible stories to throw Daniel in the lion's den and to throw Meshach,
Shadrach, Meshach, and the big Negro. Bendigo.
Throwing them in a fire.
Right.
But there's another story where I'm not sure where someone warned him that he was being the handwriting on the wall.
No, that's the son, Belshazzar.
Is that who went crazy?
Belshazzar, yeah.
Oh, wasn't Nebuchadnezzar?
No, Nebuchadnezzar was thrown into the wilderness for seven years.
Yes.
Eating grass. Yes. He lost his mind.
Yeah.
And God brought him back and kept his throne while he was that way.
That's crazy.
Yes. But Belshazzar didn't, which is his son who took over after him, God just dealt with him.
Yeah.
That wasn't even...
Anyways, that's an interesting story about the man going into the wilderness, which is I think was remade into like a Disney movie about
was that the Tarzan or something like that?
No, it was inspiration for a Disney movie about a king turning into an animal or something.
Right. Yeah, but God, I mean, see what I'm saying? We think of biblical things as only biblical, and they only happen in biblical times. No, that stuff happens today. If God can go to that length in delivering you and me. A lot of times it depends on our faith. And sometimes God will challenge us so that our faith will grow to that level. We can depend on Him like that.
Interesting. Any other paranormal supernatural experiences?
I got some. You got to wait for the book and the movie to come out.
Okay? Uh-oh. We'll have you back on the podcast when the book and the movie's ready.
Yes, that's for sure.
You can tell one more story.
Yep.
What are the pros and cons of organized religion?
I think the pro definitely is those who... let me go with the con first. The con is that a lot of religious organizations do not preach the Bible. They preach around the Bible, or they preach parts of the Bible. And that's the thing. The Bible says in the 1 Corinthians, I forget, study to show thyself approved. Workmen need not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. So if you rightly divide the word, you're not always going to say everything that's great. God's not into all feel good. He is not Santa Claus. So the problem with too many churches is they're not preaching the word. They're not giving the people the word. They're giving the people pablum, spiritual milk. But you can't grow on milk. You need meat. So the goal is that, if you have the meat, you will grow, and God can be blessed. And too many churches have Ichabod over it. The Spirit of the Lord has departed on them. So that's one of the problems. Second problem is not enough churches are standing up for truth. We're letting all these other groups stand up. But we're the most powerful people in the world because we have the most powerful God in the world, yet we're still not standing up. We're still letting, unfortunately, there's a lot of racism between the church. I used to be a church rep for Canon, and my job was just to deal with churches. And boy, the division in churches, the difference between the Baptist Progressive and the Baptist Southern and the American Baptist, it's crazy. it's just okay. We can't get along.
Yeah.
So that's a major problem. I think the positive though is that there are churches preaching the word. People are lives being changed. People are coming off of drug addiction. People are learning to be better men, better women, better marriages. Children are raised better. So there are a lot of great things with the church. I'm not just bashing the church, y'all. I mean, really. I thank God for being in church.
Yeah.
For me, I raised my family there, and even though we had problems, it would have been worse had I not been in church. Had I not heard the word and not been groomed by the word and allow myself to get into the word so I can read it for myself. That's the thing. You got to know the word for yourself. I mean, it's great to have a preacher preach for you, but it's better for you to know the word, because then you can go to God with the word.
Yeah.
See, I love going to God. I love calling on God's different names. See, I call El Elyon when I go to battle. You know what I mean? Jehovah Nissi when I go to battle. I need that banner, man. So it's like you need to call. God has. I think that's the other thing. We don't take God serious enough to go deep enough to learn that He has names. When you want the formal name of God, you call Jehovah. When you want that tenderness, you can call El Shaddai. God Almighty. So it's like I use that because I want to relate to God better. I think we don't relate to God enough. We relate to church, but what about the God we serve? I mean, who is He?
I think so many people get attached to the church,
right?
And then when the church lets them down,
right,
they forget that there's a all-powerful, many-named God there that is. That's the heart, right. You know what I mean? Like when your heart's got a problem, you got a real bad problem.
And then say,
but you got a skin problem,
right?
You got to heal the skin, So you got to heal that part of the church, and maybe you need to jump if you're there, maybe you jump over here somewhere, But
I was gonna leave my church. I had a situation that was so bad, I was gonna leave my church, and I was seeking the Lord about it, and I never forget listening to Chuck Swindoll. Chuck, you the man. So, and he said, the church has the direction, but God has the answers. Bing! God said, there you go. You don't need to leave, because you're going to find the same problem somewhere else. So, and I had to, it grew me up. Because it was like, let me stop putting so much emphasis on what they can do. They've taught me enough to go to God directly so that I can find out what He can do. Because that's really where the answers come from. The church is just telling you how to find the God that's going to give you the answers. But what we think is that the church is going to be the answer.
No, it's not really an answer.
No, it's not. I mean, God will use the church to give you an answer.
Yeah.
But it's really between you and the Lord. That's why if you know, the more Bible you know, the quicker your answer can come. Because there are certain things that you're going to go through that only God's word that He hides in you will help you through it. And the other thing I'll say is that God has different tests for each Christian. Like, my test is not going to be your test. And I might not fall where you fall. You might not fall where I fall. But God says, as iron sharpens iron, so we sharpen one another. So I can lift you up where maybe I'm strong and you're weak. So that's the other thing that, I think the problem is Christians are not perfect. And, you guys think you're holy. No, we are holy. Thank you, Jesus. Because God calls us holy because of Christ. Thank you. But that doesn't mean we're not perfect. We can be blameless, but we're not perfect. But the goal is that if we're following what the Lord tells us to do, then He calls us blameless, which is the best thing you can get on this earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yes, sir. Thank you, man. Bringing it, preaching it.
Hey, bro. I love comedy, but I also love that word. Now, don't get me wrong.
Oh,
love that word. Love that word. Now.
Well, Dean, you've been here for a while. I got 2 more questions for you, but they belong exclusively on our Patreon for our patrons only. So there's 2 more questions I'm going to ask you. Mm-hmm. What happens after we die? Don't answer yet. and why are we even here? But those are Patreon exclusive questions.
Why are we here?
So please, if you are out there and you are liking the content you're getting here on Funny&Amen and here on our podcast, Christians Who Drink Whiskey and Their Open-Minded Friends, please consider becoming a patron.
Yes.
You can go to patreon.com/funny&amen and sign up for many different layers, levels of support. That's patreon.com/funny&amen, FUNNYANDAMEN. And you can go there. You'll obviously get the podcast a week early. You'll see these exclusive questions we're going to ask Dean here in a second. And you also get lots of other comedy content, lots of good stuff up there, and you'll have our eternal support. Also, our store is opening now. Get your Christians Who Drink Whiskey mug, your Funny&Amen t-shirts. It's all there at funny&amen.com.
I did a bad Vanna. I'm sorry.
Bad Vanna. It's like Bad Santa. Bad Vanna.
Right.
D. Gray.
Yes.
Cheers, man.
All
Thank
right.
you for being here on the podcast.
Yes, I'm enjoying myself.
Likewise. Boom. See you on Patreon.